So it's no secret that I have played a ton of FNAF fan games. I mean, over the past few months, I have pretty much played every good-looking fan game available on GameJolt. And while most of the games I have played so far have been great experiences in one way or another, I can't really confidently say that all of them actually scared me. This is mainly because a lot of fan games choose to prioritize other aspects such as the story or maybe even the gameplay over making the game actually scary. It is actually pretty surprising how rare it is to find a fan game that prioritizes mainly on just terrifying the player. So this got me thinking, what Five Nights at Freddy's fan games have I played that actually managed to scare me? And after thinking for a while on which games to include on this list, I have finally finished it. So join me today as we look into the 4 Five Nights at Freddy's fan games that actually scared me. Alright, so for the first game on this list, we are going to talk about The Web of Cogs and Oil, which is a fan game that was made by a few different developers. Instead of having a traditional Five Nights system like most fan games have, this one instead chooses to have 4 very different mini-games. They have the Corpse, the Trickster, the Demon, and the Machine. The one that scared me in particular was actually the first mini-game titled The Corpse. And there's not just one reason why this level scared me, it actually scared me for multiple reasons. First off, I find the premise of this night extremely creepy. We are trapped in a freezer while the temperature slowly ticks down. We must keep the temperature above 30 degrees, however in front of us are 3 lights and a hand crank which powers them. The corpse is on the other end of the hallway and will move through the darkness, so we will need to balance cranking the gear and keeping the room's temperature above 30 degrees. And this leads to a very stress-inducing gameplay system where you actually have to face your back towards the corpse every so often during the night in order to increase the temperature. These moments of vulnerability, while quick, feel extremely nerve-wracking during the night, especially when you turn around to find out that the corpse is right in your face. Something about the fact that it's not an animatronic trying to kill us, but an actual person also just makes it so much creepier. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be Michael Afton after Security Breach, considering how similar they look. However, I'm not actually sure if this is true, but it would be really cool. The concept of going against a corpse has not been used in many fan games at all. The only fan game I can really think of was one of the Jolly games. I think it was Jolly 3. You fight off against a person, but besides that, I haven't seen it in any other fan game. The way the corpse looks when standing in front of you, shrouded in darkness, is seriously horrifying. And also the jump scare got me so badly the first time I played this minigame. Now, I did include this game because of the Corpse minigame, however, I did briefly want to comment on the Trickster minigame as well. The Trickster minigame places you in a dark room with a limited flashlight. In this room is a clown who runs back and forth. You basically need to keep track of this clown by using audio cues and sometimes just your own instinct to know when to flash the clown, all while trying to conserve your battery until the timer runs out. The atmosphere in this minigame is really great. The use of sound design and animation is done absolutely flawlessly for a Click Team game, and the management of conserving flashlight batteries and keeping track of the clown is very stressful. Now, the only reason why this one isn't as scary as the last one is because the clown himself is more funny looking than anything, so that's why I can't really put this up there with the Corpse minigame. But I thought I would include it in this list anyways because I do really like the clown minigame and wanted to at least talk about it in one video. Next up is Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese Rebooted. This game came out around a year ago and was developed by Radiant's team. And just like the last one, there isn't one main reason why this game is so scary to me. I mean, the eerie tone, the realistic art style, the jump scares. There are just so many different things that are terrifying about this game, so I'm going to do my best to describe it all right now. So firstly is the tone. I love that this game never breaks its serious nature. Later in the FNAF series, the games would often feature jokes or comedy segments, and this game doesn't do anything like that, and instead maintains its horror tone throughout the entire runtime. The dark nature of the game also carries over to stuff like the graphics, with everything looking very dark, realistic, and gritty. The building that the game takes place in looks extremely run down, but is also believable as a location that could maybe exist in real life. The sound effects and ambience that play during the nights are also extremely haunting, and probably one of the creepiest things about this game is how the animatronics are placed right in front of your desk, behind these booths. This means that when an animatronic leaves their starting location, they will now no longer be visible to the player without the cameras, constantly reminding you of the looming threat that is wandering around the pizzeria. The jump scares in this game also got me really good. I don't know if it was just because the sound was extremely loud or if the jump scare noise is just that good, but it did get me. The animatronic jump scares are also done really well. They look so realistic in motion for absolutely no reason. Like, I can't put my finger on why they look so real, but they just do, and this leads to them being extremely creepy. Also, not to mention how disturbing the animatronics from Chuck E. Cheese really are. I mean, the game's models of these animatronics are very accurate to the actual Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, which is pretty funny when considering that the animatronics in this game are actually scarier than most fan games. Also, just seeing these familiar faces in such a dark and horrifying environment is really disturbing. Oh yeah, and one last thing that I need to mention about this game. So instead of having a door like in FNAF 1, in this game you actually have a gate. The difference with this gate is that you need to slowly move it down by using this lever, and this was done very intentionally, as when attempting to close the door on some animatronics, this can happen. The game gives you absolutely no warning that this is possible, and the first time that it happened to me, it was absolutely terrifying. It makes you feel so hopeless when you come to the realization that your only source of protection isn't even working against the animatronics. This is truly an amazingly well put together fan game when it comes to horror, and I recommend anyone who hasn't given this game a shot yet to definitely check it out. Alright, so for the third game of this video, we have A Shadow Over Freddy's. Now, this fan game is a little bit older, as it was released over 4 years ago. However, you may have heard its name in circulation recently, as it was actually created by FNAF, who, if you guys don't know, is the developer behind FNAF Plus. After seeing the dark approach FNAF was taking with his remake of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, it got me interested in the other games FNAF had made. This is what led me to checking out A Shadow Over Freddy's, and let me just tell you, this game absolutely terrified me the first time I played it, and that is for one reason only. A Shadow Over Freddy's is a little different than your typical FNAF fan game. In this game, there are 5 nights where you will need to free roam around the FNAF 1 location. The entire building is extremely dark, and you are only given a flashlight which barely illuminates anything. Each night forces you to explore the pizzeria in different ways, either by making you collect items around the restaurant or doing other tasks. While roaming around the pizzeria, we need to make sure we don't run into any of the animatronics that could be hiding in the dark, and must complete all of our tasks before the clock reaches 6 AM. The way the gameplay works is simple but absolutely horrifying. You move from room to room by clicking on an open path, and while moving around the pizzeria, you need to be cautious that an animatronic is not in the room you are attempting to go into. You can right click on an open path to listen in if an animatronic is there, however it is extremely hard to hear over the game's ambient noises. There are many more obstacles you also need to face later in the game which lead to some very stressful moments, but to keep it brief, I'll just use one moment for an example. So during night 4, you have to listen in closely for both Bonnie and Chica, but now 2 more threats have been added. So during night 3, we are introduced to another threat, which is Shadow. Shadow will sometimes appear in your room. You must find where Shadow is hiding and flash them with your light before proceeding, or you will die. The second threat, which gets added during night 4, is much worse, however, and that is Foxy. During night 4, you need to roam around the pizzeria finding various parts to build Freddy. And all while doing this, you need to make sure you check on Pirate's Cove from time to time. This is so stressful when already dealing with all of the other animatronics, as it makes it very scary trying to make your way back to Pirate's Cove from your current location. And it also forces you to remember where you are going at all times and keep track of where Pirate's Cove is relative to you, all while trying to complete this before 6 AM. The game puts an insane amount of pressure on the player, which is what leads to the game's tension being so high. This is seriously one of the most stressful fan games I have played. The anxiety the game causes is also increased by how loud and surprising the jump scares are. I seriously think that this game has the scariest jump scares in any FNAF fan game. They are so quick and happen out of nowhere, which leads to it being horrifying every single time. The fact that the game makes you listen also forces you to have your volume up, so there is no way getting around these jump scares. And as someone who is immune to jump scares almost 99% of the time, these ones got me every single time I played. I'll play a clip on screen now for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, something about the noise coupled with how quick the animatronic pops out of the darkness is just so shocking. I think it's because when clicking on a room, you are basically confirming that you are confident there is no animatronic in there, which leads to the jump scare being a surprise every single time. It's kind of similar to the approach that was taken in FNAF 4 when you would shine the flashlight down the hallways. One last thing I want to mention about this game is that it actually features an in-depth story. After every single night, we are given a story that is told through text boxes and drawings. And while I'm not going to go into the story in this video, I did feel like I needed to bring it up as the story has a very disturbing premise, which keeps the game's tone feeling very dark throughout the entire time you're playing. All of these reasons added together led to a Shadow over Freddy's being one of the scariest FNAF fan games I have ever played. And I advise anyone who is into the scariest of FNAF fan games to check it out. This really does give me a lot of hope that Five Nights at Freddy's Plus is in good hands and will turn out absolutely amazing. Alright, so for the final fan game on this list, we have Sub-Zero. And this one is actually extremely obscure and only a few people really know about it. Sub-Zero is a VR FNAF fan game that was actually developed by Squeaks D. Corge, who, if you guys don't recognize, was actually the developer who was responsible for making Polar Dread and also Shipwrecked 64. I actually played Sub-Zero before playing Polar Dread and planned on making a video on it. That video was quickly scrapped, however, as soon as I checked out Polar Dread. Now, this does not mean that Sub-Zero doesn't have its moments though. Even though this game was released over 2 years ago and definitely doesn't have the polish that Polar Dread has, it also contains some extremely creepy moments. First off, the fact that the game is in VR instantly makes it way scarier than it would be initially. I'm not sure how many of you guys have actually gotten a chance to check out a VR game for yourself, but the immersiveness of the VR headset truly makes the game horrifying. Seeing the animatronics right up in your face with no way of escaping besides just closing your eyes is really scary. Speaking of the animatronics, by the way, one of the animatronics featured in this game is this seal right here. And I'm not really sure what it is about this design, but it absolutely terrifies me for some reason. The seal actually takes the same gameplay role as Perry from Polar Dread, and seeing them crawl through the darkness of the vent towards you is seriously one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. And all of this isn't to mention the scariest night in the game, in my opinion. Now, this may not look scary when you watch it in a video, but I'm gonna do my best to explain it. So basically, after making it through a certain amount of the night, we then make it to this section right here. We are placed in front of the two main animatronics that Sub-Zero features, and they are both dancing in front of us. We need to watch them constantly by moving our head back and forth to make sure these animatronics do not glitch out. If these animatronics do start glitching out, then we need to press this button right here. If we fail to press the button in time or press the button when the animatronics are not glitching, we will die. The VR controls of this night make it so much scarier because we are only able to see one animatronic at once. So you will be frantically looking back and forth to see if the animatronics are glitching, hoping that you didn't miss any small movement. Not only that, but this section comes in really late into an already long night, and failing it results in you going all the way back to the start. This made the night way more stressful than it would have been otherwise, which made it even more scary. If you guys have a VR headset, I seriously advise you to check out both Polar Dread and Sub-Zero. The way the gameplay is made just works so well with the VR controls, and it really does such a good job of selling a horrifying yet immersive take on the FNAF genre. Alright everyone, so that wraps up the FNAF fan games that actually scared me. Let me know which game out of the 4 is the scariest to you. And also don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you made it this far. Thank you all so much for watching all the way to the end, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.